So welcome everyone to day 2 of the API Power Up Summit. Today yesterday we focused on Power Sector 101, but today we're talking about getting ready for opportunity, and we're going to look at practical ways the API can support you, what you can get from your vacation placement, and how subject selection at university can really project you into the direction that you want to go. Wonderful. All right. Okay. I think we're all ready for my wonderful colleague, Hayley, who will be walking us through some of the API resources and how the Power Up community, including all our, learning journal, career resource, all the things that we do as part of the Power Up program, is a great chance to, to learn more about the industry and to find that passion of yours.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. It's so wonderful to see so many of you here. We're off to a really great start, having so many of you come along and are keen to learn more about making the most of the opportunities as being a Power Up community student. So just to give you a bit of background about myself, I'm the Partnerships Manager here at the API. I have been working with the API coming up close to 2 years. So it's been a great journey for me. I've not come from the power sector or engineering sector whatsoever. So for me, I've learned a lot. It's a very, very interesting industry. So much change and so many challenges. And that's why you guys are here to lead the future in shaping our energy sector. So my background is prior to working at the API, I predominantly worked at the variety of universities, mainly in the employability teams there. So what I would do there is help students find placements, get them ready for job opportunities, whether that's part-time casual work, graduate roles, and I would help connect our industry colleagues to our student cohort. So I worked at a couple of universities, mainly in Melbourne, and that was a lot what I did, and what I really enjoyed was helping connect our students to industry. So I ran a big mentoring program there, and I got a lot of satisfaction seeing our students connect with mentors and having those personal connections that would last for many, many years. So what I wanted to talk to you today about is making the most of the opportunity of being part of the Power Up. Just being muted. So I wanted to have a quick chat about the resources and what you can personally get involved in as a student. As part of our community, there are a lot of opportunities to apply for. Obviously, the scholarship. The Power Up Scholarship is one of them, and no doubt many of you have applied for that, and thank you for all your wonderful applications. There's probably a lot of scholarship students currently here as well, but we also offer other scholarships from time to time, and that's to come along to, say, conferences and events. We offer sometimes grants, exclusive opportunities that may go along with those conference opportunities. That might be going to a site tour. Sometimes there's networking events, and for undergrad women, we do offer scholarships, say, with a Powerful Women Leadership Program that may involve coming along to, say, the summer school program. So there are lots of things that you can get involved in. So make sure that you check your emails and apply for those opportunities. We also have another really great resource that you may have already signed up for, and fantastic if you have. It's called the Power Pipeline, and that's a list of students who have opted in to hear from our members relevant job opportunities. So we update this list twice a year. And we send it to our member representatives. Usually they work in the recruitment teams there. So please make sure that your details are up to date. If you're not on that list already, an email will be coming out to you shortly where you can sign up for that. You may likely already be on the list, because if you're a Power Up community student. We'll send out a link shortly in the next few weeks where you can make sure your details are up to date. So if anything's changed or you've changed something to do with your degree, you can keep that up to date. And the reason we encourage you to keep everything up to date is we're sending it to our members. And if, if there's something on there that you would like them to know about, maybe you've changed your major, that kind of thing, we want to make sure that it gives you the best chance of our members looking at that list, going through, filtering and saying, look, I want a student majoring this, this and this. And we know our members use it. They tend to look at that when maybe they've gone out to market for their vacation roles. Maybe they haven't filled all their places. They haven't found the right mix. They then ask for this list. We send it to them, and it's just another great way for them if they're looking for students. And it may not always be vacation work, could be part-time casual work. You just never know, graduate opportunities as well. So that's a really key opportunity that we want to make sure that you're keeping up to date with. We also run a whole host of online events like the summit, but we're also doing our next Inside Industry webinar on the 20th of August. If you haven't already registered for that one, please do. If you go onto our, it'll be in your emails for your Power Up community emails, but if you go onto our website, into the events, you can sign up that way as well. I will likely send a calendar invite to all of you to attend. That one's going to be a really great opportunity to actually hear from engineers who are working in the sector, who are facing the challenges that they are looking at right now about, the changing energy demands, meeting those targets. How are they working towards these strategies, yet making sure they are delivering reliable power to their customers? So it's a really great way to get some insights into what are the challenges, how are they dealing with that, and where you may fit into that once you graduate and into the future. So please come along to that one. It's just 1 hour. Some other great things that we do is when you're at conferences, you'll get to meet some of our members. We also do the live in-person events as well. That is part of the, so for the scholarship students who will be interviewing for vacation placements, we do those interviews, but also the second part of those events that will be run around each of the major cities in Australia is called the Industry Connect, and we will have members there, students to come along, hear from a panel of our members, talk about what they do, what their organisation does, sort of get those key insights into what it's like in their roles. And we will be running those in March next year, all the major states. And so again, we'll be emailing you all about that, so make sure you open your emails and take advantage of those types of opportunities. So we'll go to the next slide. Okay, there we are, cool. So just a couple of other really key tips and advice I just wanted to share with you. Through my experience and time working with students and running networking events and taking students to conferences, some really, I guess, some insights and some tips and advice I wanted to share that can really help you put your best foot forward and make those connections. And I know it's intimidating and I know it's really hard, but it does pay off. So while you're getting involved in the events and activities and anything you come along to as part of the API, we really encourage you to go and talk to our members, introduce yourself, talk to them about what you do and what you're interested in. And when you meet those industry connections, follow up with them, ask them if you can connect on LinkedIn. 9 times out of 10, they are absolutely happy for you to do that. Connect with them and, don't be afraid to reach out and ask questions. As you would have seen yesterday, the people, the speakers that were there are so happy to hear from students and they're happy to share their advice and tips. So we always encourage, don't be afraid to reach out and ask, find out about their career journey, you know, what they do, what they did to get to where they are, you know, what are the things that they're passionate about. So, you know, the more you can ask, the more you learn, the more you grow, and come time to graduate, you're going to be in a better position having all this industry knowledge and connections as well. So another thing that I really encourage a lot of students to do is seek out mentors where you can. I've had a number of mentors throughout my life, and you know, I've tried to mentor students where I can as well. Some of the best opportunities to seek out a mentor, and it doesn't always have to be a really formal mentoring relationship. It might just be a very informal couple of chats, couple of online meetings. You may not always get to meet up with them in person because people are quite busy, but do try and seek out mentors, particularly when you go and meet industry connections at a conference, at a networking event. You know, do try and connect with them, and you know, once they accept your connection, you know, don't be afraid to ask, you know, would it be okay if sometime, you know, we had a quick online catch up? I'd love to hear more about what you're working on, you know, which project you're doing with XYZ. So do encourage you to sometimes put yourself out there, as hard as it can be. It can pay off, you know, and what's the worst that's going to happen? Somebody might say, oh, look, I'm sorry, I'm a bit busy. So what, you know, you tried. Very important that when you do go and meet people, or you do catch up with people in a mentoring sort of capacity, really understand and really research the industry and the company they work for and what they do and what the projects are, as much as you can. You know, put a little bit of effort, bit of homework into understanding, you know, who these people are that, you know, you're going to be talking to, or if you know you're going to a conference and you know a couple of key members are going to be there, you know, do some research and come a little bit prepared and have some interesting questions you want to talk to them about. You know, I've seen students come along to conferences before and you can tell they've done their homework, and they've come prepared with a few things they would like to talk to our members that might be there at the event. You know, and don't be afraid to reach out to those professionals that might have a career path that you are interested in. Connect with them on LinkedIn. So I think that's a really important thing. We might just jump to the next slide. And sort of on that, it's very important that you do have a strong LinkedIn profile. I talk to a lot of our member representatives who work in the recruitment teams, and yes, while they'll look at your resume, they also like to look students up on LinkedIn as well to see, you know, how engaged they are online. You know, do they follow the company that they're even a. I'm not sure why I keep getting muted. Am I talking too much? You know, you know, is there, you know, can you show that you have an interest in the sector? You know, are you following various companies? Are you engaging with, you know, with different things that online? So making sure you have a very polished profile, you know, a professional headshot, including, you know, your most recent work, what you've been doing, including the projects you've been involved in, or your industry placements. Always have that on your LinkedIn. And even a part-time casual work is fine to mention on that, because at the end of the day, a lot of the recruiters love seeing that you are working in some capacity, whether it's in customer service, shows you've got great problem solving skills, teamwork and communication, and that's a really big thing. And you know, some of the recruiters I've spoken to lately, their hiring managers love seeing when students are working at places like Bunnings, and because it does show that they have a certain level of resilience, because it can be a challenging environment, and it's those sorts of soft skills that they are looking for, and they like to see that on your CV and see it on your LinkedIn. A lot of our member organisations, so for example Endeavour, Ausgrid, they're always posting when they're attending, you know, if there's an event that they're going to, or a conference. Sometimes you can get student tickets. We offer student tickets as well. So there's all those things that you can see who's coming along and who are the people there, for example, that will be at those conferences. They might post that they're doing an online webinar or something like that. You know, attend those. ask some questions throughout the webinar. It's a way to build your brand and your reputation as a student who is very serious about wanting to work in the power sector. And it shows that level of interest is something that recruiters, but also engineers working in the business as well, because a lot of the times they are also part of the hiring decision as well. So there's just some tips there about your professional online presence. You know, when you do meet someone and you ask them, is it all right if I connect with you on LinkedIn? Do send them a personalized LinkedIn request, not just the generic connection. You know, introduce yourself very briefly, who you are, how you know them, where you met them. You know, so it just shows that you do know, and they can make that connection. Oh, that's right, I spoke to that student after the, you know, after the conference. So it might remind them that you spoke to them. So I think it's always really good professional practice to send a personalized LinkedIn request. You know, and once they do accept, or if hopefully once they do, you know, thank them for accepting your connection, and then you could write a brief follow-up email if there was something that you particularly wanted to ask, or if there was an opportunity where you might say, you know, could I have 5 minutes of your time one day? I know, you know, I acknowledge you might be busy, but I'd really love to learn more about what you're doing on, you know, X, Y, Z. Great way to, you know, build that personal rapport, but maybe lead into a sort of informal sort of mentorship kind of connection. It can be hard and daunting, but, you know, that's the type of thing, by putting yourself out there, can really pay off. So, yeah, and I think, I don't know if we've got another slide next, but I might flick to it. Okay, yeah. So some other really key tips for making a strong impression on people working in, professionals working in industry. When it comes to any job application or any application, even if you're applying with something with the API, whether it be a scholarship or an opportunity to attend an event, don't leave it to the last minute. Give yourself time to revise and prepare. You know, give yourself time to think about the answers you want to write, to put your best foot forward. Same with job applications. You know, the number of times I hear from recruiters that talk about how all the job applications are submitted within half an hour of the closing day. You know, you may not have given yourself the best opportunity to have, you know, really prepared and put the best information out there. So, and sometimes there could be some surprise things, like a video that you didn't know you had to do, and you've just stumbled across it now, and then you've left it too late. So some other pieces of advice is making sure you tailor every single application you're applying for, whether that's a vacation job or a part-time casual job or graduate role, making sure you tailor it, and not including generic ChatGPT responses. People can tell, they know it sounds generic because all the answers are sounding the same, all the candidates sound the same. It's not in your own authentic voice. You can use ChatGPT obviously to help refine your answers, and that is encouraged, to just check for, you know, consistency, but make sure it is in your own authentic brand and voice. I think is really important, because that's what will make you stand out. And really researching the companies and know what they're doing, and know what some of the challenges they're facing, or innovations that they're just starting on, or new projects. All that kind of thing is showing real insight into yourself as a person that you're interested and you've been researching. So another thing that we're starting to hear from a lot of our recruiting partners at our member organizations is the number of students that are starting to do interviews using AI prompts, and using, you know, and it does it in real time. So they'll ask a student a question, and then you know, like ChatGPT or AI prompts will spit out an answer, and it's very that's becoming increasingly more popular apparently, but it is very obvious. It is very obvious in the response times. You know, you can tell when somebody's just reading something off a screen. So it doesn't favour those candidates very well, and that's just something that I think you need to be aware of. when you do apply for any application or express interest in anything, focus on what makes you unique. What are you proud of? What have you done that you're proud of? What are you passionate about? And getting that across is really important. Understanding what they are looking for as well, and it's usually in the job ad. The skill set and what they're after. So make sure you're addressing those, and never discount your casual part-time experience. As I said before, it's something that really shows your character. It shows your motivation, and I think it shows all the soft skills that employers look for, because technical skills can be learned on the job, and you do typically learn so many more technical skills once you're in the graduate program. Things that you would never have learned at university, you learn on the job, but it's those soft skills that they are genuinely looking for, and how to get those across in your applications is very important. So understanding what they are looking for, and make sure you draw upon all those, those experiences that you've had when you've had to deal with, problem solving and working in a team. So I think, so if I can stress anything is making sure you spend a lot of time on it, and get somebody else to have a look through it as well. I think it can always just help, what you want to say, but when you've got somebody else reading it, a family member or a friend, they may look at it and say, I don't quite understand what you're trying to say here, like this doesn't make sense. So just getting a sounding board is always really a really good idea. And another thing that I like to encourage students to do is sort of getting ahead of, what's the challenges and the forecasted trends, the skills that are required. So an easy thing to do is to start looking, signing up for newsletters in the energy and power sector, looking at some of the statistics and the reports, the market data, like look at these things and keep up to date. I mean, you don't have to know absolutely everything, but the more you start to understand where our, the challenges that are in our, the energy sector, the more you sort of have a bit more of an understanding and who the companies are and how they all tie into each other. The better it'll be about you then sort of understanding where you want to be, and where you might feel you're most drawn to, but also when it comes to presenting in an interview, you're going to show that you do have some awareness and you have been researching. So I think they're really easy things to do there. So I guess that's kind of the key things that I guess I wanted to put out there, and definitely open for questions. I also wanted to ask you guys, so on the 20th of August, we've got our next Inside Industry, and like as I said, that's going to be, we're talking to some engineers working in the power sector and what they do and what the challenges they're facing, but what they have to do in their day-to-day job, to basically keep the lights on. We're going to have another Inside Industry webinar towards the end of the year. I think it's in November. I would like to hear from you guys. What would you like to learn more about? As a student facing, graduation, what are some of the things you would like to learn more about or understand more? Help us shape the next Industry Inside webinar. We've got heaps of contacts we can draw upon to get that information. So we want to hear from you. You can pop in the chat just some ideas, and we can go from there. And we've got the Q&A. How do I find someone who I can see as a mentor? I know industry events are good, but I find it difficult to find things to ask. And I also struggle with how the information that you receive could help. Okay, so I think it can be challenging to find mentors. I've always found that a lot of students have good success with when they meet people in person, because it can be hard just sending a random email. You see someone on LinkedIn, you're like, oh, wow, they've got a career I would absolutely love. It can be hard to make that connection and just cold call, cold email out to someone. The best and I think the most, fruitful connections are those that you will meet at networking events. A lot of your clubs and societies at university will run industry nights where they will have people come from industry. They're great opportunities to start with building some connections and building that relationship as a mentor. It's not always simple as saying, look, I'm going to find someone, they're going to be my mentor. Sometimes a mentoring relationship starts a little bit more, a bit more organically, where you meet someone and you connect with them, you ask a few questions, you ask, could we have a 15-minute catch up online? Sometimes you might even, if that's sort of going well and they're in the same city, sometimes you can say, we catch up for a coffee, and it sort of evolves into a mentor relationship. The only time I think you start with a direct mentorship relationship is when, it's like maybe a university organized program where they are pairing a student with a mentor, or through sometimes the societies, the professional associations sometimes run a mentoring program. I know ESA run a mentoring program as well. So that's a designated mentor-mentee kind of role. You can sign up for those. Sometimes you can find them in your own way, and they are sort of more of a professional connection, but let's call it a mentor-like relationship. And sometimes the information is really useful. Sometimes it might not be quite the information you need. And not every professional or mentoring relationship has to continue forever. That's something you can also be quite, mindful of as well.
Hayley, just to, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
We only have a few more minutes. Do you want to get through
Sure.
these next two questions as quickly as possible?
Yep. Okay, so struggle with communication, sometimes due to anxiety. How do you recommend I approach someone at networking events where it doesn't feel like high pressure? Yeah, that's a great question. Look, I kind of feel like a lot of the networking events, yes, it's always going to be a little bit intimidating. Like that's hard to avoid, and sometimes it's just starting with just a couple of conversations with maybe some recent grads. You don't feel as intimidated. You feel like you've got a little bit more confidence. Then you might go and approach someone who might be a little bit more senior. You will find that most of the industry professionals at these events are very willing to help and give you advice and tips. They've all been where you are, so they do understand as well. And it's not as intimidating as what you may think it is. But I do understand that anxiety can be, it's definitely there. Somebody's mentioned maybe mentoring. Okay. I think we might have to, I know we've got quite a few questions here, but maybe if we've got a little bit of time at the end, maybe we could circle back on a couple of these questions, because I think there's some really interesting, some really interesting questions, and we could, it would be really nice to get some professionals and their opinions as well, on how they've built mentors and how they've mentored others as well. So maybe we could run a special topic on that if everyone might be interested.
Absolutely, because I mean, there's a difference between informal mentoring, where you sort of you go to a mentor and you ask them questions and all that sort of stuff. And then there's sort of the formal mentoring programs like ESA runs every year.
For the universities, very, very different style, and they're structured versus in like unstructured. And I think that's right. There are different mentors for different phases of your life, and they have different expertise. So I think that's a topic that maybe we could run, and then we could do a little bit more about how to build those skills to approach people, and what, sort of the soft skills and what recruiters are looking for. So yes, I think we've got our next section, but if we got a little extra time at the end, maybe we could come back to that. Otherwise, I think we will maybe look into doing that as a special topic.
Yes, absolutely. And it sort of it takes us to our next topic, with our speaker, Caleb Rogers, who I know is online. So if we can spotlight him while I introduce him. Caleb is the winner of our video challenge that we held earlier this year for students who are currently doing their vacation placement, we get them to submit a video about their experience, and Caleb's was absolutely amazing, and he did his vacation placement at SA Power Networks, which he'll talk about, and you remain working there as well, don't you, Caleb, in a part-time capacity? So I am gonna pass over to Caleb now. You have slides. Okay, let's oh, you're already sharing them. Oh, you're ahead
I
of
like
me.
when things work.
I do, me too, especially when
Absolutely.
technology works. I'm going to pass over to Caleb. Thank you so much, and we'll get back to some questions afterwards.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Stephanie. That was an absolutely lovely introduction. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate all of the support from the API, and I'm very happy to be here today to talk about my time on placement and the rest of my experience at SA Power Networks. Just want to really quickly check, is my screen showing properly? Because I see the full presenter view. I just want to make sure it all looks good for everyone.
Yes. Yep. I can see the numbers down the bottom, 1 to 10, but yep, looking good.
Okay, no worries. Perfect. Wonderful. Cool. So, hi everyone. Thanks again for having me at the API Power Up Summit. I hope everyone's been enjoying the talk so far. And I only just joined in the last few minutes, but what I was hearing from you, Haley, was really incredible stuff. And I reckon that there's lots of really good information that's been disseminated throughout this whole session. And I hope everyone's really enjoying it and benefiting from it. So I've got some slides here. The main reason I prepared these slides is because I've got pictures, and I think pictures tell 1,000 words, so I'd love to show them off, but I'm not going to speak for too long. More so, we'll open the floor to some questions towards the end. So I'll get started with things. A little bit about myself. Hi, my name's Caleb, and I am an electrical engineering and computer science student from Adelaide University. Been doing a Bachelor of Computer Science and Bachelor of Engineering concurrently. And throughout uni, most of my focus has been on electronics, so like microcontroller programming and also software development. So not power is the main point behind that. However, when it came to the end of last year, I was looking at different vacation opportunities and what I could spend my time in the summer doing. And SA Power Network stuck out to me because of the challenges that are coming up in the power sector, which traditionally I always thought was very much just poles and wires. But I've learned very quickly that that's not the case. And there are so many ways that what I've actually been doing, more of a software sort of background, can be applied to power engineering, which is something I'll talk about soon. So yeah, my placement has been at SA Power Networks in the capacity planning team. What does capacity planning mean? Well, essentially it's looking at the state of the network for the next 15, 30 years, perhaps, and looking at where we should invest in infrastructure, what changes are happening with supply and demand, and where we need to best invest in the network. So it's that really long-term focus side of things, but also then the much smaller scale work of, okay, a customer wants to build a factory at this location. Can we support that? Do we have the infrastructure? And if we don't, what do we need to do to enable that connection in the most efficient way possible? So I rocked up on day one with all of this software background and microcontroller programming experience, and I was told, okay, well, this is what our team does. This is essentially very power heavy work. Got some things to learn to get up to speed, and then from there we'll be able to get some work happening. And so I remember my first sort of week here at work going through a book that explains all the theory of how we make planning decisions and being a little bit out of my depth, which I'll speak to a little later. But it was a good time to calm down, pause for a bit, and think back to how it actually relates to what I've learned and what I've known in the past. And so I was able to sort of catch up that way and talk to some people. So yeah, as I mentioned, a lot of what I worked on involved looking at customer load responses. So someone wants to connect, can we do it? If not, what sort of work needs to happen? I also got very involved into network modeling and making automation tools in Python, which is sort of drawing on my computer science background, which I was very happy to do. I think the key point that I want to make from this slide and what I got from the placement overall is they put me to work, like real engineering work, making actual decisions that will impact how something gets built or how a customer gets charged for some work, for instance. So this is not just sitting in the corner reading a textbook or writing some notes. This is actual decision making, which I found to be really exciting. I was very happy with. So in the time leading up to my start date from when I got the offer to do this vacation program, I thought, right, I'm not really that familiar with the power sector. How can I feel more prepared? And so that's why I started learning more about the industry. And there are so many fantastic resources out there. The API's got a lot of them. In particular, one of my favorite resources in preparing was looking at all of the Power Up video challenge video entries from the last few years and seeing what work people actually did and where different areas that are sort of big in the industry are and what a lot of the changes happening were. So I was able to get, I guess, that sort of first-hand feel of what it's like to be in the industry, and that really helped me. The other main resource is essentially all of the companies in the energy industry, whether that be DNSPs, TNSPs, consultants, they've all got websites packed full of information about the current challenges they're working on. So some of the big ones being DER integration, so distributed energy resources like solar and wind and batteries, and then also the move from being just simply network service providers to being network service operators, where they're sort of controlling the back and forward flow of energy, is another major shift that's coming up, and there's so many great publications about them on those websites. I also had the opportunity to catch up with some people who I knew through uni who are working both here at SA Power Networks and some other industry players around the state, such as Electronet, the distribution company. And so I was able to get a feel about the actual work they did and where I could best sort of prepare myself for that. So yeah, talking to peers who have done a placement is an absolute a must if you can. It's fantastic. And if you bring some technical experience, it will be put to use, even if you don't think it will, based on the company or the role. Whatever you learn and are good at, I reckon it can absolutely be applied to any sector, but certainly the power industry. For me, to get started with first impressions, I think the number one thing is to ask questions. So many people worry about, oh, bad questions, or will I look silly if I ask this thing? And I think that is absolutely never the case. Never be afraid to ask a question. What really helps is if you try and figure out the answer yourself first. And then if you were to go to someone and say, hey, I had this question, didn't quite understand this, but I tried to look at this, still didn't make sense. What do you reckon? That's one of the best ways that you can not just gain credit, not just get the answer to your question, but gain credibility by showing that you tried something and tried to work it out. Like having that initiative, it goes such a long way. And yeah, that also speaks to this point of communicating clearly and regularly, having chats with the people around you and your team, having a chat to different leaders around your companies, and just learning how things work is the number one thing that you can do. And just always being interested in what's going on, regardless of if it impacts your specific work. Learning about what's happening at your company and outside is one of the best things you can do. And that goes to this next part of how do you make the most of it? And I think the number one thing you can do on a placement is say yes to opportunities and look for them yourself. I have a particular memory of one day I got into the office and a few other people from my team were putting on their high vis because they were going to go out for a site visit and they were going to look at a site where a new substation was going to be built in a few years' time to inspect that and get a gauge of different issues that might be happening with that particular construction. And so I just asked, hey, I'm quite interested in this. I know it's not related to my work, but do you reckon I could come along and have a look? And so what did they do? They scoured the office for a high-vis vest for me to put on. And we were able to go down there. And this picture that I've got here is actually of that site. So in a few years' time, that will be not just bare land, but there'll be some electrical infrastructure there, which is pretty exciting to be able to see that before that's the case. I think once you're in the industry as well, being able to speak to different people across different teams and have an understanding of the big picture of whatever small component you're working on, find out like what piece of the puzzle that is and where it fits in is probably the best thing to do. And constantly looking for things that you can do differently is the best way that I think an individual can contribute themselves. So if you see something that you think, oh, maybe there's a better way of doing this, never think, oh, I'm just on a placement, I shouldn't, speak up, or my thought doesn't really matter. No, raise it immediately. And I reckon most companies will absolutely, certainly SA Power Networks has, anytime I've raised something that could be done differently, it's like, okay, let's look into this and implement and save some time and money perhaps. That's it. I did want to also speak to where I felt out of my depth. As I believe I mentioned earlier, my first week coming into SA Power Networks with no power background, aside from the very first what's it called, electric energy conversion course they teach at uni, where they teach you the absolute very basics. I was definitely out of my depth, even when they were talking about basic concepts such as three-phase. I'm like, okay, how do you do a three-phase calculation again? Oh, I remember something about square root 3. How does that fall into this equation? And so going back to some course notes as well as the materials that I got provided to sort of take things back to step one and build up an understanding. Everyone's extremely patient with that. Like, they don't expect you to come in knowing absolutely everything. And so that's the best thing you can do. Just give yourself a bit of opportunity to relax and enjoy it. And then 100% there'll be opportunities to apply what you're relearning. I did want to share my top 3 tips for being in the power sector. I think number one is to have that mix of general and niche knowledge. So you want to understand the industry, you want to understand the big challenges, you want to understand what's happening interstate, you want to understand what's happening overseas and what developments are happening. But then I do find it very helpful to pick a certain area, usually within your team, that you can really take a deep dive in and become almost like the expert on. Expert might be a bit of a push, but one thing that I've been looking at in particular is network modeling. So SA Power Networks, one of the tools we use in capacity planning to do these load assessments is called SynCal, and these are some screenshots of it here. And I found it to be a really cool tool. And some of the people in my team were telling me about things they've tried to do in it but haven't quite been able to achieve yet. And so I thought, okay, I've got a bit of spare time up my sleeves. Why don't I try and fix some of these problems that they've been having with this tool? And so now, essentially, all of the work that I've been doing while I'm working here part-time after the placement has been on improving the usage of this tool. And so I'm sort of relied upon for this, like whenever there's questions, I'm the first one to be asked, which it feels pretty good coming from, a few months ago when I didn't even know exactly how to do a three-phase calculation to now people coming to you for some subject matter knowledge. So absolutely, no matter how you feel getting started, there's always room to grow and find things. Second point, which I did already talk to a little bit, if you see something that could be done differently, say it. Like, absolutely have your say in a placement. Usually the reason that companies will bring in people like yourselves from universities is because you've got a fresh set of eyes, a new way of approaching challenges. And so that's absolutely what they want. They want to see something new, a new way of thinking, a new way of doing something. And so I'd always recommend to just speak up and have a chat with people about things. My third advice as well is keep a note of everything. Still to this day, I write down what I did to this every day. And the reason I do that is because it, number one, helps me with administrative tasks like filling out timesheets. But also, if I need to go back and say, oh, hang on, what did I learn from this thing? Or what can I do here? Or what do I need to talk about at this meeting? Everything's there. It's all recorded. And the great thing is to go back to the API, they provide the learning journal, which was what got me started on documenting everything, so I could actually have something to write about when it came time to fill out the journal. And it is a really great tool to actually sort of document your thoughts, keep everything together. And it might seem like a bit of a burden at first. I mean, I know I probably saw the journal at the start. I'm like, oh, more uni work to do. But that's not the case at all. It is very, very helpful, especially as you go on to interviews and things moving into the future. I understand we're getting pretty close to time, and I do want to take questions if anyone has any, but I would just leave on this final slide here. You're not expected to come in with expertise. No one is. You're an undergraduate vacation student. Like, we do not need a power expert coming in. But what will absolutely pay you dividends is coming in with curiosity, motivation, the willingness to learn, and being able to talk to people and share your thoughts and ask questions. So if you treat your placement as just an opportunity to learn and learn in the real world, not just university, and see how things are really done, ask questions, ask to go out and see some sites, like, that is absolutely what it's here for. It's a two-way relationship. Like, you're doing work for a company, but at the same time, they have so much that they can teach you, and there's so much to learn from being in the industry. And yeah, that's what I'd certainly say. Cool.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Caleb. We really appreciate that. If you guys have access to your React button, come on, let's give Caleb a round of applause while I bring up our Slido question screen. So I'm just going to take back sharing, take back the sharing screen. So send through your questions using that same method in Slido with the QR code, or join slido.com using the code that is listed there, and we'll see what questions we have. Now, I think I did see someone send through the chat around, did you have a mentor? Did you have a mentor, Caleb? Who was it? How did you find them? All those questions.
Yeah, no, great question. I would say I had a few mentors, but probably the most important one going in was another person who, for a bit of context, I was very involved in my university's electrical engineering society. I was the president of that club a few years ago, which was a good fun experience. And so I was very close to the previous president of that club. That previous president also did a vacation placement here at SA Power Networks, and they now work here full time because they've just graduated, which is very exciting. So I'd certainly say they were my mentor because I was asking them questions left, right, and centre about what it's like, or how do I go through an interview, for instance, things like that. And so I think if you're involved at a university, which you most likely are if you're here today, I'd imagine, essentially most universities, if not all, will have at least an engineering society, but if not more specifically an electronic engineering society. I think getting involved in those clubs is the best way to find a mentor as a student, because a mentor doesn't have to be someone who's been working in the industry for 40 years. It could be someone who did their placement 6 months ago, and that was the case for me.
Fantastic. Yeah, and that's a really great point about they don't have to be someone with 20 years experience, and you can have multiple mentors at different career stages. Have someone who is 6 months ahead of you, have someone who's 5 years ahead of you, have someone who's 10 years ahead of you. Fantastic. Now, I haven't seen any. Oh, here we go. Here's a question. I'm currently studying electrical engineering for my undergraduate degree. I do not have any experience, and neither do I have meaningful projects under my name. What do you think I should do at this point? I'm not too sure if you have the answer to that, Caleb, but if you have any advice.
Yeah, I love that question because I think there really is a difference, at least from a recruiter's perspective, from what I've talked to and heard about. There is a difference between someone who does a degree and that's sort of it, and then someone who does a degree and has projects and other things outside of uni. And the really exciting thing is nowadays, especially with AI, that sort of anyone can use agents to come up with ideas and cook up projects. I think really what someone in those shoes should probably do is just pick something you're interested in. Does not have to be related to power or energy or any particular industry. It could be related to a hobby you have. Well, let's say you play tennis or something. Oh, I'm doing electrical engineering and I want to make a little gadget to track my tennis stats, or it might be an app or something like that. It's just an application to an opportunity to you to learn a new skill, whether that be programming or electronics design or anything like that. With these days, you don't even have to spend any money on anything now. If you've got a laptop, you can write an app pretty quickly. And I think if you were just to make something like that, again, even if it's not related, if you can put it on your resume and say, hey, I don't just study at uni, but I have a passion for learning things and trying new things. And here's what I've done, and here's what I learned. Here's how I failed during this thing, and here's how I overcame that little hurdle. I think that's what really matters. Absolutely doesn't matter what you do, as long as you're passionate about it and care about it, because then you'll actually want to do it.
Oh, that's a great answer. I also would like to add, anything that sort of demonstrates your non-technical skills. So, if you've presented or if you've shared something or if you communicated or you've worked in a team at university, I think any of that sort of stuff is fantastic to show as your experience. All right, we've got another question, and this will probably be our last question before we go on, is what project are you most proud of so far, Caleb?
I'd say, yeah, probably my most proud project so far would be I've done a little startup, so it's still going on the side of work in uni. We're making these camera devices for data collection. So with AI around the corner, not around the corner, it's here today. In order for it to be useful in lots of business contexts, you need information that often isn't captured, information from physical sources, whether that be a pressure gauge reading or the state of a plant or a certain process. And so we're making these little camera devices that can connect up to our cloud server And from there, you can use a plain text prompt to describe whatever you're looking at. And we've been able to sell that to a few people and actually have some recurring clients from that. And so that's certainly the thing I'm most proud of. And the way we got those clients was by just talking to people and saying, hey, we got this thing, do you want to try it? And sure enough, they did. And they had different things that they wanted. And it wasn't always straightforward sometimes because it was prototype devices that break down in production. So we'd be crammed into the car to drive down and get it fixed up. And then, yeah, just continually working on it. And that's something that I'm very excited and proud of.
That's fantastic. Now, I have, there's an interesting question here about, do you regret working in the power sector or choosing a placement in the power sector? So maybe we'll finish on that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that question. I do agree that there are really, really fun areas in electronics that excite me, right? I love playing with even things like ESP32s. And I think yeah, like there are lots of areas that I would like to still explore. I don't necessarily even right to this day want to say I want to commit the rest of my life to working in the power sector. I think I'm very happy to be in the power sector right now because there are a lot of challenges, especially like with what I was talking about, renewable integration and control of all of those things. There's a lot of smarts and electronics and software that needs to be applied in order to make that happen. And perhaps there are other companies that do that kind of work more directly. They're working with more of the electronics rather than just the design of things. And so I think there's absolutely a lot of interest there, and perhaps it's 100% worth exploring more opportunities in that direction instead. But that said, right now I'm very happy to be in the power sector because I can sort of see how it gets applied more so to the bigger picture rather than just the actual devices themselves, for instance.
Fantastic. Well, we're so happy to have you in the power sector, and I hope you continue, with touch points within the power sector as you go. Obviously, we want to keep you, but no one's career path is linear. So, I'm sure we'll see lots more of you in the future. Caleb, thank you very much for your time.
No worries, my
Let's
pleasure.
give
Thank you.
Caleb one more round of applause for, providing some really great insights on his vacation placement experience. Now, we only have 5 minutes left of the day 2 of our Power Up Summit, and I feel like we've had some wonderful, amazing discussions about, how Power Up can support you, how your vacation placement can support you. We've even delved into mentoring a bit, but I wondered if we just have a very quick 5 minute student discussion around choosing the right subjects at university. And this is sort of an open discussion and people can, send through their questions in the chat. But I want to gauge where everyone is at because I know that we have a number of students who have joined us enough, they could be in the first year of their studies and some people were in their final year of studies. So my question is, which area of the power sector are you most curious about right now? So yeah, go and have a play with that. Love it. And then the next couple of slides sort of talk more about this, and we'll just briefly go through it, and then we'll finish up for day 2, and hope to see you back tomorrow for day 3. Wow, interesting. So 60% in power systems and networks. I am surprised that renewable energy and storage isn't ranking high. I mean, 21% is still unbelievable. Well, of course it goes up when I say that. 25% is unbelievable. All right, I'm going to keep moving through. So when you think about, what you're interested in, it's sort of looking at how you can match your subjects to the pathways, the career pathways that are out there. And here's some sort of like, if you're interested in power systems, learning about networks, transmission, distribution, system planning and operations. If you're interested in like the renewables, of course, it's future energy, it's batteries, it's grid integration. So making sure that you're choosing subjects that align with your interests. However, Sometimes, that's a bit scary. Sometimes, I mean, different universities offer different subjects, and there are, a whole bunch of different subjects that you can choose within electronics or within electrical engineering. So, my next question is, what is one word that describes how you feel about choosing subjects at university? Depending, like I know in your first year, you don't tend to choose as many subjects, but in your second, third, and fourth year, where you're choosing more, what are you feeling? And I go back to when I was at university, I studied teaching, and I remember, choosing some of the subjects. You're like, oh, well, what sort of education do I want to teach? What do I want to teach? And I remember some of my you sort of got some free choice subjects, and I always just went with what I really wanted to know. And I did computer science. I did, those side things because I think that was really interesting. Oh, here we go. We've got some people feeling really anxious, bipolar, which is sort of, like don't know what to choose, curious. I love someone chose electric. I don't know if that was like a pun. It's very clever. Fantastic. Yep, it's overwhelming. Yep, disorganized. I know I would feel, what if I chose the wrong subject? What if I don't like it? What if all those sort of those those feelings, indecisive, curious, indecisive, and disorganized are the most popular. All right, we're going to keep moving through. When choosing subjects, I think you need to ask yourself, does this build useful technical information? Is it an area that you feel connected to? Will this help, me learn more about my, in the interests? And is it applicable for the future? And does it keep your options open? So I just wanted to add in, this is some things that you can think of, and if you've got other suggestions, please add them to the chat while we wrap up today. Before we finish, I just did want to share that we do have some Power Up opportunities coming up. So as Hayley mentioned, we have the Power Pipeline jobs list, which is open, and we encourage you to update your details with the API. So that's that first QR code. And then in the coming weeks, we have our Power Ambassador info session if you're interested in going out into schools and sharing information about the power sector. That is the webinar to attend. And then, of course, Hayley also mentioned our Power Up Inside Industry coming up next month, Thursday, the 20th of August, from 12 to 1. If you are interested in registering to attend that, please use that QR code. And then the last and final thing at 3 o'clock, bang on the dot, I want to know, how did you find day 2 of the Power Up Summit? And again, another QR code. We do love our QR codes here at the API. It's a really great instant way of getting feedback. Feel free to give us an email with, any suggestions, any, thoughts. But yeah, wonderful to see that. Mostly 5 stars, which is fantastic. There's always room for improvement in everything that we do. And it sounds like later in the year, we'll be doing a session on mentoring. So I hope to see you all there, and I hope to see you all back tomorrow for day 3 of the Power Up Summit. Thank you, everyone.